Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this panel of consumer crypto apps. Have the killer apps finally arrived? My name is Andy. I'll be the moderator for this session, and we have four amazing panelist speakers here with us today. And I guess if we're good to start, maybe we can have everyone introduce themselves a bit, and we'll start with Francesco.
Thank you so much for moderating this lovely panel. What's up, everyone? Francesco, I'm leading developer relation at Consensys. So Consensys is the mother company of MetaMask, Linea, Infura. And yeah, I'm excited to speak everything around MetaMask, swaps, bridge, and all kind of like consumer-facing kind of like dApps today. Excited to be here. And thanks for having this energy to come to one of the latest panel here today.
Yeah, hello everyone. Really excited to be here with amazing speakers today. This is Tatsu from Sartail. I am leading consumer and gaming business development at Sartail. Sartail is a core contributor of a few products, while Sonium, for example, being one of them. And yeah, really excited to dive deep into the challenging but also exciting topic that we have today. Thank you so much for having me.
Hi, I'm Dominic Cox. I'm head of public relations at 1inch, the DEX aggregator. I started out my career in crypto maybe 5 or 6 years ago now as a media strategy consultant for OKX, and then for Bybit as a media strategy consultant in the Asia Pacific region. So this is an interesting one for me. Now I've jumped into the world of DeFi, so looking forward to it.
Thank you for coming to the venue. And this is Sota Moriyama, the Chief Business Officer in Yowake Entertainment. Our company was established as a joint venture between the top Japanese entertainment company and the individual like Yasushi Akimoto, the producer of AKB Group. I've been in this like a crypto space since 2019, and like I'm speaking from the crypto perspective, but like about the entertainment use case. With the IP like ownership and outreach to the fandom, we're like developing the protocol to like onboard the next billions of users to on-chain.
Thank you, Francesco. I guess everyone here, we have pretty different backgrounds. We have, I think, some keywords that we've heard earlier: DeFi, entertainment, gaming, wallets per se. We all have like our different, what do you call it, strengths, and have like our different backgrounds, maybe in different previous roles as well. And today we have this topic of the killer app, or the killer apps. For me, I've personally only been in the crypto space for a very short time. So I'm always here just to learn from the masters. And before we dive into the discussion, I think it would be the most important to define what actually killer apps mean. And since we have different speakers from different what are subsectors of the crypto space, maybe we can hear more from each of you on what your definition of killer apps is, maybe with reference, specific reference to the sector that you're currently working on, or it could be just something that you're really enthusiastic about. Is it okay if I start with Francesco again?
Sure. I think I'm a bit biased on, obviously on the wallet side, I'm definitely interested in around kind of infrastructure powering those dApps. But on the killer side, I mean, during my time, I always see very verticalized focused apps, SocialFi, stuff like Farcaster, Polymarkets, and everything is kind of like touching how we're getting onboarding easier like specific users and on a specific vertical. But if you're asking me what is kind of like the super app that is kind of like working those days and have stable kind of like users is hard to say. So I think like verticalized, I mean, one other example is obviously like Aave, even during DeFi summer, right? There was a specific need for lending and borrowing, and then kind of like a specific kind of like user journey has been defined. So I would say kind of like these three categories. Where is the problem market fit? It's another question, right? But but I think let's start with that.
So the question is like, what's like the killer app, right? Yeah, okay. I think there are generally two ways we can think about this. The first one is basically killer app within the existing crypto space and within the existing crypto audience. And I think we're seeing that in certain payments related solutions and a lot of DeFi apps, to be completely like my personal opinion, anywhere from Uniswap, Aave, some more of those lending protocols like Morpho. Honestly, if you ask me what's the killer app of this year, last year, I would even say Pump Fund, based on sort of like the traction that it has been getting, sort of like finding product market fit within the crypto space. And they're like raising 200 millions plus, right? So that is something they are getting somewhere, right? From those like random three, students gathering to literally making millions of money. I would say that's PMF within the crypto space. And then I think there's the other type of killer app that I guess like the broader audience has been expecting and also excited, which is sort of like penetration to the non-crypto users as well, right? And I think that's also the other definition that we can have for killer apps. Those ones should be, I would say, providing experiences for people beyond the crypto space, the crypto holders, the traders, and then powered by blockchain technology. And but then sort of like in a very seamless way that people don't really realize that it's on blockchain, but then everything is abstracted. However, you're receiving tokens. However, your records are being recorded on chain. I think that's the other type of killer apps that from my personal work, that's sort of like where I'm getting into and the kind of builders that I'm trying to find. I would say this is also harder, but I think all in all, I think there are those like two different types of definitions we can sort of like have.
Cool. Yeah, I guess from my perspective, killer app and like super app is sometimes used interchangeably, or I don't think they're properly defined. I think if we look to the like Web 2 space, I think the super app of like WeChat or Line and those types of apps is like the holy grail for someone like Elon Musk or for poor people in the West, right? Where these apps, this panacea for like online entertainment or social media or finances has not really happened. And I think if we look to the Web3 space, we have, I define it as the killer apps are the ones that have like a specific vertical. They're focused on executing payments or lending, and maybe they're building out that space with other sort of add-ons or other offerings. And then you have the super apps, or the ones that the Coinbase is trying to build, where they're trying to integrate lending. I think they just launched today with USDC, and they're integrating DEX trading for retail users, and they're having a social element. So they're really pushing for this kind of like holistic experience, trying to lock people in to just use that one app. So killer apps in this sense, I think is the one that's vertically focused and is doing the job that it's supposed to do and potentially expanding that role. And then the super app is the Coinbase, who's pulling together these killer apps into one ecosystem.
Awesome. What I wanted to answer was already answered like by three of them, but like, in general, I think the definition of killer app can be different, like depending on like vertical domain and the persona of the users. But like essentially speaking, I think the killer app is something used by like many, like millions of people and generating the revenue in the like a general sense.
I think one also part of this, I mean, we're always kind of a bit biased when we speak about apps, but it's also like the other game is about distribution, right? If we're solving a specific feature that is going to much more mass markets, I'm thinking about, like consensus pushing the entire kind of like SBET narrative, right? When we are able to actually do token settlement on top of public market stocks, then it's opening kind of a market that you can actually like leverage DeFi for actually like having traditional stakeholder on top of like dividends and stuff. So this is not a specific app, but it's also like a distribution feature. And it might be also like even stronger value prop that a distribution feature, it might be more interesting than actually a verticalized use case, right?
I agree.
I mean, if everyone has anything else to comment, I would let you continue here.
No, I mean, I think we've covered it quite well, and I agree. I agree as well.
Okay. So I'm very pleased to hear that like all of you have pretty different opinions or very different comments on how you see what killer apps are. I mean, Francesco mentioned like product market fit as one of the problems. Also, like Dominic mentioned how like the vertical side, vertical aspect of like killer apps compared to like super apps being like something that's like all covered, like something where we see in Web 2 as like WeChat or Line, and so on and so forth. And I think while we see examples like Pump.phone, as mentioned by Tats, I think there's still some what I call we still have some distance with finding like the killer app or like the killer apps of like a certain vertical, and while we have already heard like some of the problems that we that is present or like some hurdles that we have to clear before reaching the final killer app, what do you think is the main like constraint or like what is the main problem that we have to solve before we can finally see like the killer app in crypto or like the killer app in your respective like area of interest?
Yeah, I mean, I can jump in, so I can cover the easy ones first and then leave the rest. I mean, from my perspective, like usability and UX is always the poster child for the barrier to mass adoption. And I think this is something that 1inch's mission is built upon, in at least in terms of sort of bringing together all of these fragmented chains and projects and protocols. I feel like we've been building this city, and we've built the buildings and the hospitals and all of these amazing things, but we forgot to put any like road system or train system. I live in Bangkok, so I know the feeling of having a modern city with really terrible transport, and it's frustrating. So if we treat the city that we've built as Web3 and then the rural areas as Web2, we're trying to pull those people in, but they're not willing to move because the transport is not so good. So I think once we improve that usability aspect and make it so it's not so complicated and it's extremely simple, and the usability, my dad can quickly hop on, swap his Ethereum for Solana, then stake it and do it all with just 2 or 3 clicks. Then I think we'll be in a much better position for these consumer crypto apps to go to mass adoption. Right now, everyone in this room can do all of that, but new users, it's still a little bit, we're a little bit distant from them being able to just quickly open and lend and swap and do all of the stuff that we're able to do and that these killer apps are able to do.
Yeah, one interesting example is we kind of unified the swap and the bridge button on MetaMask a couple of months ago, and like kind of like OGs, including kind of like even myself, say, hey, why we're doing this, right? But actually, like newcomers don't really want to know if it's a swap or a bridge. They just want to kind of like swap and do a change, right? Same with, for example, gas fee payments. I obviously like I mean, we're always saying like we should kind of like build our own ecosystem, but we should also like learn a lot of like usability mechanism that Web2 brings on the table. It's not rocket science. Like mobile usability has been there for a long time. So I think like we are purposing different audiences, right? That's why it's very important to start to actually like integrate SSO and social logins, right? Or start to think about Omni accounts. Thinking about that in 2025, you're still kind of like bridging and doing kind of like different transaction between different networks, and a newcomers don't want to actually touch that. So I'm also thinking about how we abstract this way on a higher level. So sometimes also like when we are kind of like trying to say you need to educate yourself about how the infrastructure work, you don't know how HTTPS kind of like works on the background, right? And how this security system on browsing works, right? So enabling kind of like a minimal abstraction like level, I think is definitely like very important. So we're always coming back on the onboarding side, but also we want to satisfy both kind of like audiences, right? If that's why I'm looking a lot around exchanges. You know, you have a pro version, a swap version, and a beginner mix version, right? People want to have the side. You know, we can't as a wallet even upgrade users to smart accounts. You want to give actually like the decision, right? Same with kind of like 7702 kind of upgrades. So there is a lot of like interesting things, but usability is definitely one. And also like make sure that you are shipping features that are like Web3 value, right? Focused. But in the same time, we need to compromise. We need to compromise, and we need to kind of onboard more user no matter what. So people that are saying Robinhood, you know, new layer one are not good. If those guys have more distribution than the entire Web3 echo chamber, it's not a bad thing for me, right? So it's very important that we should understand that at the end of the day, distribution is key. We should also like push the usability side, and we need to serve different target audiences.
Yeah, I mean, if I go onto my banking app and I want to make a cross-border payment to move my money from Singapore to the UK, I don't need to deeply understand how SWIFT works and which intermediary banks are being used. I mean, I could go out and learn that, but it seems slightly unnecessary. And if it works and I trust it, and it works again, and every time I send it, it works again, and it works again, then yeah, we can remove the complexity, but maintain the transparency. So if someone does want to know, they can. But likelihood, my parents or those coming on board now just want it to work, and they want it to be as simple as possible, and that's it.
Maybe I can speak from the like a different perspective of you guys, because like we are not actually like developing the crypto app yet. What I meant here is like we are the like a Web2 company who is trying to build a application powered by like a blockchain. But like we will implement the crypto in the future, but like we are not doing it yet. But like what I actually experienced when we launched the beta app in this year, like we actually like use the social login and account abstraction for like a retail user not to feel like using the blockchain. So we host like we also partner with the several like idol group or some other like iconic IP to like bring the people to come to on chain, and we successfully onboarded more than 60,000 people at like a single campaign for only 10 days with that like a blockchain abstracted experience. But like after we onboard the people on chain, we need to start to think about how we can actually like acquire people on chain and the crypto. And I think we must be careful about the education of crypto, because like crypto is different from like a blockchain technology itself. Blockchain technology is just a technology under the like application, but like crypto is about the financial product, and they need to like get some like knowledge about the investment. And we may need some time to educate people about crypto, but like now that I can only say that like it's now the era that we can easily onboard the people on chain with the blockchain abstracted experience.
Yeah, I actually am also curious about the rest of the speakers and everyone's opinion. I tend to sort of like divide the whole like dApps on chain to DeFi apps and sort of like the consumer apps, right? Like including gaming and stuff. I think so. I want to speak a bit about DeFi first. I think there's DeFi is becoming a thing. Because there's a actual reason for people to use it. People can get higher yields than depositing, on the, on T-bills or different, dividends, whatever. There's going to be boosted yields. It's very simple, and the idea is that you will get higher returns. So there's a compelling incentive for you to actually dive into DeFi. Tokenized dividends, tokenized stocks, and being able to trade them during the weekend, being able to trade them when the stock market is, not live, is also another reason, legitimate reason for you to use it, in my personal opinion. And then now we speak about consumer crypto apps, right? I think we really have to take a step back and really come back to the original question of why are we using blockchain, and what is the purpose behind? Because I feel like things are becoming more and more mature, right? Like all the technologies that we just talked about, social logins, account extraction, being able to sponsor gas, being able to back up, even if you lose the private key, using AA, being able to restore everything. Those techs are coming together. So actually the usability, the experience, I feel like is getting better. But then the core question of why are we using blockchain still has to be answered, in my opinion. And I would say like that's something, for example, just because I know the Yoake project really well, I think they are tackling this really well. So the 60K users campaign, the voting campaign that they did on chain, I think there's a reason why they actually want to use blockchain, because people become super serious when it comes to voting for their favorite idols and favorite musicians and everything. And you want to keep things immutable. You want to keep things transparent, right? And then actually having the record on chain and just like being able to ensure that the record is correct. I feel like this is like a great use case. So the core question of why and coming up with the legitimate use case in the consumer crypto space, I think it's like an ongoing question, right? Like it's just like it keeps on going forever and ever. But then I feel like we need to continuously address this, and that like think that this is at the core of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way of thinking of kind of like taking a step back, right? Because we're speaking about so high level use case, and then the majority of my time in my life I've been around kind of emerging markets, and when we're seeing about payments, it's the true PMF here. Remittance use case is literally like 1/3 of payments between emerging market versus other. So no one right now, if you're actually going to Nigeria, South Africa, even Argentina, no one anymore is using SWIFT. A lot of people are doing kind of like, neobanks. They're actually starting to do much more like peer-to-peer payments. So the question is also who is controlling on-ramping, on off-ramping. But TLDR is that just the remittance use case is where kind of like, blockchain track system and on payment rails is interesting. So I like kind of like also taking a step back, because we also need to realize that the biggest like use case where it's truly valued and is truly distributed are in cities that we are maybe never been, right? They are battling, battling kind of inflation and high centralized provider every day. And this change has been already started for a long time, right? But sometimes they're also like kind of like over-engineering about use case. Prediction market are amazing, right? But in some way, like if you look at like payments and remittance rails use case that are crypto enabled are also very interesting. The other thing is that off-ramping, right? We launched that people probably think, oh, this is something that always been around. But MetaMask card, you can off-ramp from a self-custodial wallet with some USDC on Linea, right? It's a strong value proposition, self-custodial. You can actually like have some money on a stable account. You can off-ramping and paying in a POS. If I'm going sometimes to US, like the answer that I'm getting is, hey, what markup you guys getting, right? I was both in Bogota and Lagos in the past 6 months, and the answer is, wait, are you telling me that I can off-ramp in a random POC to buy some vegetables with some random USDC, right? And the answer is kind of like very different. So I'm also like feeling that taking a step back is very important, and really understanding why we are in this industry and which use case we want to enable.
I've been hearing so much, and I've been like, yes, like the whole time in my heart. It's like all the like I can't abstraction, because like as someone who's like still pretty early on. I think I came into crypto much later on. Like all these like bridges, bridges and swap like being together make it so much easier. Account abstraction, making sure that I don't have to like remember my seed phrase or being worried that like it somehow got hacked is like a pretty easier thing that happened to me. And I think all about like entertainment, how like I think killer apps doesn't have to be a crypto app. It should be a good app in general, whether it's for crypto users or users that are not exposed to crypto yet. And I just want to like add a bit of my own comment. I know I'm here to moderate, but then I think it's still relevant to Ethereum. I think you probably know that JPYC, like one of the first stablecoin issuer, like the first licensee in Japan, they've been here. I think a lot of things are coming out soon, so they're not really out yet. But then them helping with like off ramping, on ramping, and also like help crypto users, maybe heavier crypto users, to avoid like being over heavily taxed with their like holdings or like their gains. I think that's also like something that could be interesting and like would like contribute to like what the killer app is in general. And I wanted to go to a different angle because we're at EDCON. And I know there's a lot of like developers here, and we're here to talk about development after all. So I know most of you are probably in the business side, more business side of it, maybe except Francesco. But then what do you think as like a developer or like when you're developing something, like what does it take to make a killer app? Like as a developer, is there anything that everyone here should be more aware of to create like a useful consumer killer app?
I mean, I'm not a developer, but from a layman's perspective, and coming from the Web2 industry, we used to work with like Oracle, AWS, these types of traditional tech companies, and I see how slowly they move and how they do move, and they're very protective over their IP, they're very protective over their technology, and usually they will go out and acquire or just buy smaller companies and just build them in like this. And I think the one thing that I've enjoyed just from being in DeFi is the ability for projects to use other projects and not have any ego attached to it. They're building towards the same goal is to grow DeFi, is to increase users, to bring people on chain, and whether that means say like OKX wallet coming to 1inch and saying, hey, we want to use your swap API, and then we oblige, or our open source coding from Uniswap being used by 1inch. These types of things of like pulling projects together and building something bigger is the one thing that I found the most exciting, and the reason why this space is growing so quickly from my perspective. But Francesco, you might have an opinion as an actual developer.
No, I mean, I agree. I think, you know, the strongest kind of value proposition of this industry is that we are always being pushed to build, you know, not just open source in public, but also like enabling permissionless innovation, right? Stuff that happens with MetaMask snaps, extending the functionality of the wallet, but independently to our own kind of teams. You know, giving instruments to dApps founders and users is something that is really like important in this industry. And we're seeing already where the direction is going, not just with the entire kind of like AI and agentic ecosystem, but developers right now are definitely like looking for pre-blocked, kind of like pre-cooked solutions, especially on the abstraction way, right? For example, on the MetaMask developer tooling, we have both on the SDK side, we have kind of like as you said, like kind of verticals where you can integrate payments, rewards, and different kind of modules. Then you have the entire delegation toolkit, so delegating frameworks. You can delegate anything and build the permissions, and this is also fully open source. You can take it, fork it, and build on top. And then obviously you have the embedded wallet solution. No one I mean, if you really want, you can actually build this natively, but no one in this industry as a founder, they want to go to a road to MVP as soon as possible first, right? So they want to have like your embedded wallet kind of solution integrated, and then they want to have the flexibility. So giving these instruments, I think is very important. But in some way also like we need to kind of like, Omni accounts, kind of like this cross-chain interoperability. You want to kind of like build those islands. They are getting, they are communicating with each other easier, right? Because right now I feel we definitely have a lot of like not just liquidity fragmentation, but developer fragmentation. And the reality is that, I mean, looking at Electric Capital report, there are 22,000 developers actively committing codes, around 17,000 on Solidity. So if you're actually looking at other ecosystem, it's very interesting, like how people are kind of floating around. So the space from the development side is not that big, right? That's why we need, Rust developer, we need Web2 developers, and people are similar to how we are, consuming data in a Web2 ecosystem. Developers are actually like used to actually specific development tooling, Rails and stuff, right? So it's very important to actually provide these packages. I really like what, for example, Arbitrum is doing with Stylus. So trying to kind of like adapt also the same languages with newcomers in the space. So yeah.
Yeah, I also agree with that. But like, yeah, when building the app in our team, we have in our mind that like we don't build something user do not actually need, and people sometimes have the too much inspiration on like building something not very like necessary at that time. But like we intentionally not to build those kind of things, but to focus on something user really needs and user really like get used to like using. So that's gonna be our key to like build the something like about the killer app.
So developers, right? How to so yeah, again, I'm more on the business side, but I'm trying to think from their shoes. Maybe there's a really nice report that's issued by Electric Capital. They do crypto developer report every year. And I was just like looking back, I just got reminded of this. And according to the report, ever since 2023-ish, the number of like crypto developers, so people who deploy smart contracts, have stayed around the same. So it kind of like boosted in like 2021, 2022 during DeFi summer, right? So everyone saw the NFTs, DeFi, and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. And then they got in. And then they're not doing that anymore, right? And then I was just thinking why this was the case while like hearing everyone. Because like, I think from the developer perspective, let's say if you were to make a career switch from Web 2 to Web 3, I'm pretty sure the salary is competitive. The working, conditions and everything should be competitive, if not better. I think. I think people, unless you're like a contributor, right, of like all these like open source protocol, I think there are sort of like economic incentives and opportunities there. So when I come, so I came to think what is sort of like hindering sort of like inflow of more people coming in, and I came to the conclusion, or I think one of the reasons, right? I think there's so many reasons, but then one of them is probably sort of like the general impression of like the whole crypto space, and sort of like the developers kind of like a bit intimidated, scared, or a bit skeptical about this whole space because there's no legitimate reason to build, which is kind of like something Sota just mentioned. And I also want to tie in regulation is what I was thinking, because now we see so many changes happening in Europe really regarding MiCA. We see, Genius Acts and a bunch of sort of like things getting changed in the US. There are going to be more regulatory frameworks being established all around the world. And if that could give more transparency and sort of like a less of those like intimidating feel to this whole space, I feel like they will realize once again that there could be some untapped opportunity in this whole crypto space. And I know that developers are also motivated by not just like economic, incentive salaries, but then they also want to innovate and drive something new. And this open source culture, this culture of you yourself being able to propose the next ERC, the next EIP, that must be really exciting. So it's just that I feel like the overall impression, if that could sort of like improve a bit, I feel like there's going to be a lot more opportunities we can see, and I feel like regulation is just like so important to that and like really connected. Yeah.
I mean, you also saw. Yeah, I mean, I'm always so excited around, privacy preserving kind of like tech stack, also for developers, but also like it's so frustrating when you see kind of like really interesting kind of like, project and companies that are not getting like funded enough. It's always the same kind of like way, right? That only profitable use case are getting like interested, or you need to be hacked before caring about security. So yeah, just want to put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, we see I've been to a couple of hackathons now around the world, and I see there are more and more developers coming to them, and more developers from within that specific country. And so when I went to Taipei, I was speaking to some of the organizers of the ETH Global Hackathon there. They were saying this is the most like Taiwanese developers we've had, and they're saying that in every stop along the hackathon sort of cycle, it's more local developers sort of dipping their toe in a little bit. But I think to Francesco's point, to keep them interested, there needs to be some way for them to realize what they're building, and to have that level of coaching or investment in these startups, because the bin at some of these hackathons of great ideas is overflowing, and it's just because maybe they need some support from BD guys to give them some idea of how this can turn into a profitable, sustainable business, and then marrying those two, because if not, the developer will eventually just burn through the ideas and then keep going, but not realizing anything. And that, if you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, that realization, I think might have been your talk, but that is on the top level. Yeah, we can pay well and we can give you a secure job, but ultimately most people from their careers now, they want to feel some level of worth that they're contributing, and so sort of bridging that gap between developers creating something and then it turning into a realized vision, I think is important.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you mentioned the Maslow, these builder needs. Yeah, because it's super important, and we should kind of like advocate for this stuff more, because there are different kind of levels. But I think also this cycle, so the game changed a lot, right? Before you getting capital for actually building the product, right? Right now, the road to MVP is so short that you can actually like finalize the hackathons with already kind of like have a pre-market kind of like MVP. So where the game really changes on distribution. So now, before you had to have your, I don't know, 5 smart contract developers, auditor already line up, but now it's better to actually test distribution and kind of like this problem market fit as early as possible. And the life cycle is less than 2 months now, right? So actually having an army of like bits dev and trying to understand if you can actually go through kind of like partners as early as possible is more interesting. So every cycle is different, but I think it's super important to understand that, depending on the type of situation, the killer app that you want to build, and the feature that you want to kind of like attach to what you're building already, depends also on the cycle that you have, the technology that you have, the resources that you have. So there are different ways to put that.
Okay, we've heard a lot, and I'm very excited. I'm very pleased to see that like with this being like EDCON, we're hearing a lot of like inputs on like development, and I think like a lot of these topics, or like a lot of these like discussions we've had, all comes to understanding. I have to say, understanding the market, understanding like your users, understanding like what the strength is, understanding like the tech stack that you're using. All these things are very important into building like the killer app. Of course, there's a lot of things that I can't just conclude with one sentence. I think we're almost coming to like the end of the session. But before we end this, I do want to see. Well, you all have your own products. You all have your own projects that you're working on. What do you think? Why? Oh, why do you think your product or like new releases that you're having would be the next killer app that we're going to see? I mean, it doesn't have to be like the killer app, but then just like a bit of time to show your project or like let people know more about what exciting releases you have in the future. Anyone who wants to start, please.
Sure, sure. I mean, from a 1inch perspective, the mission is always to unify the DeFi ecosystem, and unify that is taking place. We've sort of EVM chains have been brought under the 1inch cross-chain umbrella, but just last month Solana was brought in. This was the first non-EVM chain, so you can swap gasless between those two chains, between Ethereum, Solana, Polygon. So this was a big step towards that unite DeFi mission. But I think the broader one, and the one that's the most exciting as well, is like the integrations with these centralized players, so the Coinbase of the world, the OKX of the world, the Binance of the world. So bringing DeFi and CeFi together, so that in this panel, the consumer of the crypto app has the full range of access to products and services.
Yeah. So for me, I think we'll soon launch the application in as a main release. As I mentioned, like we launched the beta version this year, and we experienced such a large fan base onboarded on chain through our app. But like for the next app release, I'm proud to say that like we've already secured the commitment from the IP holder who have the outreach over the like 10 millions of users. We'll see how they will be onboarded on chain, and they will like experience how they experience on chain. But like yeah, after we certainly see the activity that they made in like our app, will like upgrade and improve our app more and more, and have the like other like IP onboarded on the app. But like at the end of the day, we want to leverage blockchain and crypto to like recognize and reward for each fun activity. And like I'm proud to say that like actually Yoake means dawn, the sunrise in Japanese term. But like I'm glad to see the dawn of like on-chain entertainment powered by us.
We don't have that much time, right? So I'll try to keep it as concise as possible. In the beginning, when we were talking about killer apps, you mentioned the base app, the super app, and I think the reason why super app is for base is going to work is not because the base app itself is so revolutionary compared to other 10,000 iOS apps that we have already. But then it is because Coinbase basically secured all the layers of Web3, anywhere from the exchange to the base L2. They also have Coinbase development CDK that the developers can use, and they basically have everything, all the verticals covered horizontally. And I think that's the strength of Base and why they are there. Startail is also a Web3 development company. We are from Japan, and we are a leading project by being able to contribute to multiple interesting, very, very interesting projects. One of them is, as I mentioned earlier, Sonium. It's a blockchain layer 2 that is built and backed by Sony Group Corporation. And Startail has a joint venture together with Sony Group called Sony Block Solutions Labs that's building Sonium. We last month made an announcement together with SBI Holdings that we are going to now work on a tokenized stock platform. And that is also another project that we'll be working on. And our strategy, we really want to model what basis. I personally think Coinbase is doing something really interesting and something we can learn a lot. They have the exchange secured all the way to the infra. We would love to pursue this strategy. We are also building kits, development kits for the developers, including account abstraction, RPC nodes on top of Sonium, RPC nodes on top of different, chains, whatever. By having the holistic experience for both retail and developer, I think that's our approach to build a foundation for the builders to come into our ecosystem and hopefully build a killer apps, a consumer killer apps.
Yeah, I mean, not a fan of shilling, but I mean, on the consensus side, the ecosystem has never been as kind of like advanced and flourished, right? Couple of examples: the MetaMask stablecoin issuance with Bridge and M0. There is tons of use cases that can actually be built around that, from kind of like on-chain the settlement to kind of like Aave borrowing and loans. Then the entire off-chain off-ramping with MetaMask card. Now, I mean, in less than 8 months, we are in 25 different countries, enabling kind of like, off-chain off-ramping. And I think that's very important for a lot of people, because closing the loop of your kind of like experiences is super important. But then, everything around, TradFi with Sbet, it's quite impressive. The launch of the Linear ZKVM being now the fifth in terms of like TVL is also closing the loop, pushing the fact that a bunch of the settlement of the Sbet side will be also on Linear, enabling a lot of like different new incentives. So it's never been so flourished, right? And I'm definitely excited where things are going. We are finally closing more and more kind of like loops from kind of the off-ramping side to including much more what was the enterprise ecosystem was before, and now it's basically including more TradFi. And I'm definitely more excited to see bigger player coming. And this is my 3rd year even coming back to Japan, and every year is getting better and better. Not just more developers, but also more adoption. The entire also like TradFi kind of like coming much more heated, and everybody want to kind of like have a piece of the entire kind of like stablecoin ecosystem. I think there will be a lot of kind of like way that this will move forward, but will be always be in the interest for the user. So that's very I think that's positive, and the direction are very promising. What do you think about that from the Pacific kind of? I feel like you should not just moderate.
I have to say our time is up. I'll not use that as an excuse. But then I guess like for me, just like a simple wrap up, the killer app, I think there's a reason why there's an S after the app. There's a lot of like really great applications out there, and I think all of you represent like one of the killer apps or killer apps to be. And I'm just more excited to see, as a user myself, more accessible apps, like more apps that are like easy to use, like you want to use it every day, or maybe like you don't feel stressed using it. And I think that's why we are here in EDCON, to talk about how we can develop further for Ethereum, but also for like blockchain in general, and how we can bring this like technology for good to the mass public. And I just want to say thank you for all 4 of you. This has been a very what do you call it, like very nice panel I have done, and I've like honestly learned a lot from you on your products, but also just to learn more about like what is bringing us forward into the next era of like killer apps. So thank you so much, and thank you for all the audience for listening. Yeah, please give a great round of applause to all the speakers here, and we'll see you again.
Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。それでは引き続きこちらのステージは次のプレゼンテーションの準備が整い次第ご案内をしてまいります。そのまましばらくお待ちください。We are now preparing for the next stage. Please remain seated and wait for a while. Wait for a moment. Thank you.